Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Going to be joined in just a minute by Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter. But first, you know what time it is. I think I speak for most men, especially Patrick Murphy, who just got engaged, when I say we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue? Over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and included the risk of several other health problems. That's why we've partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode, makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Go to usejoymode.com. You can see it up here. Look at that. Right on. Go to usejoymode.com/Bucknuts and get 20% off with code Bucknuts at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Bucknuts at usejoymode.com/Bucknuts. Great sex solved naturally. All right. Naturally, I welcome in Bill Kurelic and his palatial view of his palatial estate there, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Gentlemen, I was at the foundation event on Friday night, and what do you think the over-under on people who asked me if the Dean and the Grand Poobah would be attending? The answer is about 5. Pretty impressive. The word is out. The show has made an impact. It's very cool. Once again, those of you that I met, the nutters that I met were excellent. It was a tremendous event. And I've told on the show yesterday with Dave that I already had a lot of confidence in Ohio State. I think this is the best roster they've had in a while. And it's certainly the best roster they've had relative to the competition in a while. And the foundation is rolling. I left there feeling very confident. Dave and I told a story about getting a chance to meet Kyle McCoy the year before, and he maybe wasn't the effervescent, charismatic personality we hoped for an Ohio State quarterback. Will Howard, he's got it together. So we are looking forward to that, and we are thankful for the foundation. I got some new T-shirts. See that's a new plate right there. So good stuff, and we could not be more proud to be associated with them as we move forward. Now, we're also proud to have these two dudes here because they are the best when it comes to what we're about to talk about. Bill, let's put a wrap on 2025. Who's got to decide? When are they going to decide? And you are not allowed to mention Trey McNutt.
You know, when you were talking about the over-under, Dan, I thought you were going to say the over-under on questions about David Sanders and Trey McNutt.
Too high.
Too high.
Off the board in Vegas.
Yeah, I can believe that. But those are 2 of the pending announcements. There are actually 4 pending announcements, so to speak, of players that either made official visits to Ohio State or Ohio State related. Trey McNutt, of course, did not make an official visit to Ohio State, but he's up first. Now his announcement is August 3rd. I think you guys talked about that on your show yesterday, so we won't go into that too much detail, but it's still, he is going to announce now on August 3rd. And I don't feel that much different than I did before he postponed the announcement, to be honest. Then you've got on August 12th, you've got Josh Petty, the offensive lineman. I think Ohio State is a little bit of a dark horse there. Florida State is where things have been trending a bit. His sister going to school there being a factor. But again, I don't think Ohio State is eliminated in that. You've got the big one, so to speak, on August 17th. You've got David Sanders making his announcement. That is going to be about as highly anticipated as possible. And then we don't know 100% for sure, but Phillip Bell has talked about between August 25th and August 30th. That's kind of in his window, so to speak. So those are the 4 pending announcements, but that doesn't really end recruiting for 2025 for Ohio State, because you've still got the other wide receiver that they're certainly involved with, that's Preston Bowman, and he's still committed to Kentucky, but Ohio State, I could absolutely see him making an official visit to Ohio State once the season starts. I'm not saying that's a definite, but I can see it happening. So you've still got him. You've got Malik Autry, who Ohio State has been trying to flip from Auburn. He's still out there. So you've got those two. Plus, you've got the running back situation. Carlos Lachlan still wants to add a third running back to the class. I think sometimes people forget that. But Anthony Turbo Rogers has told me he plans to make an official visit to Ohio State during the season. Definitely one to keep an eye on. They would like to flip him from Alabama. That would be kind of a nice return shot after Alabama getting the commitment from Justin Hill. And then Shakai Mills-Knight hasn't made a decision yet. He is in the mix still, too. He has had a long relationship with Carlos Lachlan. So, those are kind of the names on the board right now, really.
Things have died down in Ohio a little bit. Mark, what's the scene right now? When you're talking to recruits, what's the top of the mind? What are their coaches looking at? Have they moved on to 2026? Are they still obsessed with 2025? What's the latest?
There's different tiers of colleges right now. In the Ohio States, the upper tier, the Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, they're well into 26. In fact, I think Bill and I might go through some of those rankings here in a little bit. That's what I'm focused on now. If I happen to stumble across a 2025, great. MAC recruiting is largely 2025 right now. The camp season is about to end. The 7-on-7 season and pads are going on in the next couple of days here in the next week or so. Once pads go on, you'll see a flurry of MAC commitments, lower level commitments. Much people want to put money in the bank in case they get hurt. And then it's going to quiet down on the recruiting front because everyone dives into their season. This is my favorite time of the year. It's rather boring for the Bucknutters, which that's good. That means everybody's working and everybody's healthy. That's really all you want right now is if you're a Bucknutter. No weird story coming out, no flukish injury. Everybody's, marching together at this time of the year. And that's a quiet march. We've done this every year. We get into this little lull and it's like, what's going on? But I enjoy this and it lets me, do some other things in life, not to digress from Bucknuts, but yeah, I think 2026, the names that we're going to start talking about today are the names we're going to start beating like a dead horse over the next year.
Yeah, there's a reason we've gone over a very few names in 2025 that remain now. There's some biggies. There's one enormous one. I've already scheduled the day off in August that I may take after that commitment's made, and I'm going to go down to Knoxville possibly. Just kidding. I'm actually feeling pretty good about that, and I will not mention it. All right. Let's do this, actually, Bill. There's been a couple questions about this guy that I'd like to discuss. I think we should update it. Jahkeem Stewart, arguably the most physically imposing high school player that I've seen in this cycle. Although he's, I think, currently 2026, Bill. 2026, and there's talk he might reclassify to 2025. He certainly could do it. I don't think there's a growth issue there. I don't think he's going to be playing against bigger kids like others would have concern. Can you bring us the latest on Jahkeem? And the school that's made a surge in recruiting recently, unfortunately, has been LSU, his home school. So I'm not sure those things have anything to do with each other, but can you give us some context on Jahkeem Stewart, maybe what you think he'll do classification-wise, and then what would happen after that domino fell?
Yeah, I actually talked to Jahkeem over the weekend. I believe it was Sunday, but it was either Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday, and he is going to visit Ohio State. He told me he has already got it planned, that worked it out, that everything is planned for him to visit Ohio State for the Michigan game in late November. So that's a good thing. One of the questions is, will that be an official or unofficial visit? Obviously, if he stays in the class of 2026, it cannot be an official visit. But if he would reclassify to 2025, it could be, and it in that case would be, I'm sure, an official visit. But I asked him that question directly. Have you made a decision yet? Are you going to reclassify? And he said he doesn't know yet. So, people have asked me, is that a real possibility? Yeah, I think it's a real possibility because he said he doesn't know yet, meaning that it is, in my mind, still under consideration. So we'll see. I guess if I had to absolutely pick, does he reclassify or not, I would probably go with, yeah, he reclassifies because physically he's ready. But again, right now he's in the class of 2026, and when he makes a decision, we'll have that news on 2026 or 2025. Now, as far as the LSU part of it, if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say that he ends up at LSU. But again, we got a long way to go in his recruitment. I mean, a long way to go. So we'll see. But Ohio State is still very much on his board. The fact that he's visiting Ohio State again shows that.
It does seem that those guys, and I don't know any inside information on Jahkeem Stewart, but it does seem like in the NIL era, you come from a state that does not allow NIL, you probably want to get to college as soon as possible, start getting your NIL payment, then you're into the NFL quicker, you're into your second contract quicker, and all that good stuff. So I don't think every football player should be approaching it that way. That said, Jahkeem Stewart, he could start for the Cowboys next week. Yes, it's insufferable, but he is that. He is. We talk about franchise players and NIL not being an issue. Enter Jahkeem Stewart. All right. Good morning.
If he's not the number one player in the country, yeah, there's something going on. Or
we haven't seen the other guy.
Yeah,
right.
or in top, something like that. He's really rare.
I mean,
I don't want to get too excited already because we have a whole year.
Sure.
He's the David Sanders type from last year that everyone's just gonna immediately want to wrap their arms around and love.
No question. And he literally looks like Chris Jones, of the Kansas City Chiefs, just reincarnated. Unbelievably impressive. All right. Let's move on here. Let's talk about Victor Singleton, Bill, as we lead into Mark getting us started maybe on 2026. We're going to talk about some guys in Ohio they have their eyes on. You knew we were doing this today, so you, being the fantastic BM5 contributor that you are, rolled the crystal ball for us to time it out beautifully. I don't think the two had anything to do with each other, but explain that, why you did it, and then maybe put that in context as you hand it off to Mark for maybe a top down on who we should be thinking about in 2026 in the great state of Ohio.
Yeah, in fact, I had a feature this past weekend on my current top 12 2026 guys in Ohio. Victor Singleton obviously was on that list. He earned his Ohio State scholarship offer. He got it at camp when he was outstanding June 5th at the Buckeyes camp, the first camp of the summer at Ohio State. He also has an offer list that includes Tennessee, Missouri, Penn State, Wisconsin, West Virginia, others. And I just feel confident enough that talking to people around Victor and talking to Victor too, that when it's all said and done with Tim Walton recruiting him, that he'll be a Buckeye. And I did make a crystal ball pick for him to go to Ohio State. So he would be a great addition. This year in the 2025 class, they have the two great ones committed from out of state. That was being Devin Sanchez and Naeem Offord. But if you look at 2026, you can get great ones, outstanding ones here in Ohio. Victor Singleton being one of them, certainly. Elbert Hill from Akron Hoban is tremendous. I love that kid. And then you've got Jacob Weatherspoon. Ohio State has offered all three of them a scholarship and would be anything but shocking to me if all three ended up at Ohio State. They all like Ohio State a lot.
Mark, for Ohio State to really have a shot at the number one class, it's usually we got to have some in-state love. We got to have a couple guys who are special. 2025, thank you very much. We maybe have the best player in the country. I mean, to get a quarterback, in 2025 down the road from you and have him almost be the number one player in the country, if he isn't that, is such a gift from the heavens that you can't even really put it into context.
If St. Clair grows up in Florida or Texas or California, it's a different ball game.
You probably don't have the number one class. Who else, now that we go into 2026, for example, 2024, I think having the Armstrong brothers in that class down the road, we're going to be like, man, there's two of them. That's a bonus. So tell me about 2026. What's the vibe? You're going to get asked, how does it's like NBA draft classes. How does this draft class measure up? How does it measure up in state relative to some of the other classes? And how does it measure up, in your opinion, in terms of like marquee positions?
So yeah, like Bill did his top 2,000 players in 2026. I think he did 13 of them. What you're looking at right there is a backstage access to Scouting Ohio. I pulled up the rankings in 2026, and I don't talk to Bill about his rankings. In fact, I didn't even look at his rankings because we usually are, do our own things. And when we sync up, we talk about guys. And when you're talking about the top 10, 15, it really doesn't matter the order. You can see on the right-hand column, I give these guys A grades. And you should recognize all these names, whether it's Albert Hill or Jacob Clapper, Jacob Witherspoon, the corner from Avon, Sam Greer, Vic Singleton, Maxwell Riley, Jaden Ricketts, Adam Guthrie, and William Conroy. Jameer Perez is probably the first name that maybe hasn't been talked about for normal fans, but we've talked about him here. He's a transfer into Glenville, and he was down at the Ohio State camp this summer, and Bill and I got to check him out. He wants to play defensive tackle and worked out over there, but he may be an offensive tackle. Braden Fogel is another player that was a basketball player. Yeah, and everyone thought he's going to be a hoopster. But when he got done with the Ohio State camp, I thought he might get offered that day. So I would have him on a hot list of maybe after 3 or 5 games into his junior year, that he would be a name. As we go down a little farther, and this is probably getting down in the 20 names, Jamarcus Weish is my favorite defensive tackle from Trotwood. Might be a little undersized. We'll see how he ends up growing if he becomes big time, but I'd keep him on that list. And Storm Miller, of course, he's a name. And we go down a few more, Peyton Cook and Cam Thomas. Andrew Baggett and CJ Newell will probably be where we'll stop here. Andrew Baggett is a kid who played tight end, who's an offensive lineman. And he plays in an offense that features the run game. If you want to talk about one of the top run blockers, I like to talk about him. And C.J. Newell out of Glenville, when he was at the Michigan camp this summer, I'm not sure if he was the MVP of his position or whatever, but he was really explosive at tailback, might even be a cornerback. But I don't know how that list goes with yours, Bill, if we compare and contrast. And I really don't get excited about what order I have those guys in. Those guys were all pretty much no-brainers to me coming out of sophomore tape. And, of course, we could go through all 663, but then I probably wouldn't be able to sell the service to colleges.
Right on. And it's interesting you say that because I'm starting to see that more and more, that I don't think when we say, the board that they have, I don't think they're as married to 1, 2, 3 as they are tiers. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I do A, B, C, because I like a tiering system. I hate to say that there's a big difference between 1 and 5 when there isn't. I give about 20 guys an A grade, and that's where the tier usually ends, where you start to lose confidence. And I've said that before, where a lot of these rankings are based on your confidence of the player, how much you've seen them, what settings you've seen them. And, I have a lot of B prospects that I think will be A's, but I just don't have the confidence yet, much like you're describing.
Okay, help us out here. If you were going to create a tier of guys that you think have a better than 50% of getting offered by Ohio State, who'd be in the tier?
Oh, some of the guys that haven't been offered yet?
Or just give me even go over the ones that you agree with, just so we're kind of really establishing who are the Ohio State caliber dudes right now in Ohio.
Yeah.
And they've already made 8 or 9 offers in Ohio. I'll add that in real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that's a tier right there based on what they think. There's their first tier. So you're kind of asking me, do I agree with that tier, or is there someone that I would?
Who's in the tier?
Question. I mean, put the heat on me. This is what I'm doing.
you're well compensated. I'd say who's in the tier, and then really, I think more interestingly, if they haven't been offered, who has the best chance to break into the Ohio State offer tier? That would be my question.
Okay, I think Albert Hill, and I think Bill and I would agree, has proved to be in that upper tier. He's run the 40 times. He's played offense, defense. He's got the long size of corner. He could be pushing in that upper echelon of corners like the ones we've got out of Ohio the last couple of years. So very safe there. Jacob Clapper, I've only seen play once, and I watched him in a combine once. Feel very comfortable with it, but he didn't look like he was quite 6'2" yet, but he's listed at 6'2", so confidence pretty high. Jacob Witherspoon is the one that was 5'11", and when I saw him sophomore year, I didn't have confidence because he was so light, but he looked really good during his showcase, and that's when I flipped the switch. Ohio State did the exact same thing that I did. When he got down to their campus, they flipped the switch and offered him. Victor Singleton was a no-brainer coming out of freshman year. He put on a combine performance over a year ago that had coaches, myself, everyone couldn't believe he was a freshman. So I would move him up with Albert Hill. Those two would be 1 and 2, and then I think Witherspoon would be third on the confidence. Doesn't mean that's how it's going to shake out, but I'm going with I like the word confidence because of what I've seen and felt with my own eyes. Maxwell Riley, you have a lot of confidence in his tape. He's the one who has the best tape of all the offensive linemen. Sam Greer is the one who may have the most future upside of all the offensive linemen. Then you bring in Conroy, who's the smaller guy, and you can see maybe confidence not being there because he's a center or guard, where we want to take a chance on a kid like Adam Guthrie from Miami Trace because of the length, but he's still kind of a puppy dog. We watched his film last week and said, compared to those national guys, not as much confidence, might have to, but that's okay for a sophomore. I'd hate it if these kids were watching this and they see me banging on them. I mean, we're talking about being one of the top 10 players in the state, so they should be gratified in that. But a lot of growth will come out of this. So those were the 4 linemen. Jameer Perez, we got to put in that group. That's the new Glenville lineman that, hey, he's someone that could, slide into that, echelon of player, but we don't know. Braden Fogel, to me, I have the confidence in. I really like it. I think that would be if you said who's the next one to get an offer, him or Guthrie, I'd say maybe him. Guthrie, I know we get a lot of people in the chat here who say, Guthrie, I see Sincere Johnson just popped up. I'm going to get to him, but since you brought him up, Mika, he lost a lot of weight this summer. Bill, I don't know if you noticed how much weight he lost from when I saw him working out the winter till now. So that gives me more confidence that he can stay at linebacker. He was almost that Arvell Reese. Is he going to go to the defensive end? He was really bulking up there. Jamarcus Weiss is a kid I liked. I have confidence in him. Is he going to be big enough for Ohio State? And then the national board for Ohio State may, Jamarcus Weiss from Trotwood may push him down. So that would be one. Peyton Cook, we've been talking about him forever as a receiver. He's in that echelon. And let's see as I go down here. Nathan Bernard, maybe the top quarterback in the class with the strong arm. I know Chip Kelly took a look at him early, but a lot of room for growth. And I know he's been working out with his quarterback coach, QB Accelerate up there. And then there's a lot of other names that we could go on for 2 hours on this podcast.
But those guys got to prove it still.
I mean, I'm going on right here. I see Bill. I don't want to lose him and have him drift off. So I know the Goodyear blimp from above,
That's
so
right.
Jaden Ricketts, High State has offered him.
Yep.
Just pretty much as fast as anybody in Ohio.
I'm sorry, I scrolled past him. I should have mentioned him with the other 2 receivers. Justin Hodge is another receiver from Menor.
Yeah, receiver's different though. Unfortunately, that's
national board receiver.
Bar.
Yeah,
very high bar here. Speaking of a high bar, let me read our last ad here, and we'll go forward.
And let me go one step further. I don't see the national board as much. I see the 24/7 rankings and stuff like that, but a lot of these guys are, the first question I get, or the last question in all my evaluations, is how does this player rank in Ohio? And sometimes when you see the national board, you think, wow, Peyton Cook's a great receiver, but wow, on this national board, he falls down to 4 or 5. No shame in that game, but this national board is a strong board to be put on. The Ohio board is always a strong board, being one of the top players in Ohio, but throw in Texas, California, and Florida and Georgia. Not even to mention the rest of the country. It's tough out there. Tough skating.
Yeah,
the world. Yeah, you versus the world.
In state, it fluctuates. It just does. You got to get kind of lucky. And listen, the reason Ohio State is the best team in the Big Ten traditionally is the fact that if you look at the geography, Ohio produces way more Division I guys than anyone else in the Big Ten. Maybe we're not Georgia, Florida, Texas, but that's the basis of football here is tremendous. All right, speaking of tremendous, and we got to be out of here in a few minutes because Bill has an engagement. But sizzle alert this summer, let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure you look neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code BUCKNUTS for 20% off and free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. In this ultimate summertime package, you get the following: the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Weed Whacker 2.0, Crop Soother Aftershave Lotion, Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Deodorant, Boxers. You get it all. So you get 20% off and free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code BUCKNUTS. Manscaped, the perfect way to get your paddlies. Good Lord. I apologize. I'm going to get aggregated here. Manscaped, the perfect way to get your patties sizzling hot this summer. Shocker, patties sizzling hot. Not in my usual vernacular. William, we're going to answer some questions. Bill's getting nervous about getting out of here on time. I can see his eyes shifting to the clock. All right, William, let's do this, brother. I'm sorry if I'm taking time here for you guys. There's a question about Trey McNutt. I am not going to answer that. Trey McNutt is not coming to Ohio State. We will deal with that. If something changes, we will certainly deal with it. But we'll deal with it then. Mika, do we bring in another edge rusher if we don't flip Justin Hill? Bill, is it possible to flip people in the NIL era? Do you think it makes it more challenging? What's your assessment of the Justin Hill deal?
Well, I definitely think it's possible to flip people in the NIL era. Justin Scott, Miami, flipped from Ohio State last year, and that was as many were just about all big recruits. That was NIL involved there, the flipping of Justin Scott, and they will. They're going to make another run at Justin Hill. I really feel. I think once the season starts and all, they'll make another run. And will he flip? I would say probably not at this point, but I don't discount that at least possibility because they will make a run at him. So yeah. Now, as far as if they don't flip him, will there be another edge? I kind of doubt it right now, but a lot of that will depend too of keeping everybody. They need to sign Zaire Mathis. He made an official visit to Penn State in late June, so that's one to keep an eye on. And there's a reason Ohio State hasn't had him make an official visit yet to Ohio State. They want to have that official visit come during the season and closer to the early signing period starting. So, but if they keep everybody in, they've got 3 great edge prospects, defensive end prospects. Mathis, of course, is certainly one thing I keep in. Zion Grady, and then London Merritt. That's an outstanding trio.
Mark and I, Erica Carroll, why don't you guys ever rate some of these kids off the other teams they play? Some of these kids absolutely play no competition. Other teams' kids play the best competition every week and dominate. Doesn't make sense how some of these kids are rated. I will handle this one. My guess is Erica Cara has a son that has not been rated the way she wants yet or has not been checked out. We do cover the entire country. These kids, we cover all levels and all competition. If there's a player you think isn't getting the right amount of coverage, let somebody know. But
And we also talk about from time to time about who are these kids playing for and against. We definitely talk about that. If you're at Mater Dei, for instance, you're playing with some great players on your team, and generally speaking, very good competition. So we hit on that.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say that we've discussed someone that Erica Cara knows who they've gone against and feels like the guy we discussed wasn't as good as the person she was going against. He was going against. That happens. It's recruiting. I listened to a podcast recently where there was an argument about if you can play, they'll find them. Some people don't believe that still. Some people do. So let's.
But yeah, I see the point there.
Boom.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Okay.
My kids are the Armstrong twins, and they actually were rated high for Cincinnati and never got a bump. Listen, I want to say something personally. I'm glad they didn't, because we would have had a harder time getting them to Ohio State. This is all part of our plan, Miss Cara. And I have super high hopes for your sons. And you're right. The rating system isn't perfect. And look, you're rating kids at 18, 17, 16, 17, 16, 17, 18, excuse me. And you're projecting them without really knowing how they're going to develop physically, how a kid's going to adjust to college and all that stuff. This is not an exact science. Matt, I think I'll make it.
Speaking you know what, in Dan's defense, that is usually the question we get is, why aren't our kids, being looked at? And I go Division II, Division III. If we went through all my rankings, there's a lot of kids that come from all programs. And, back to my confidence thing, I get a lot more confidence when they play top competition every week. And there's a lot of kids that get dinged because they play at smaller programs. And if you remember, Samuel Williams Dixon played at West Holmes, which is technically Amish country. So, these kids come out of things, but you have to be tested in other formats. A lot of times these camps legitimize who you are when you do come from a smaller school. Maybe you're not playing man-to-man coverage and I could go into this forever, but now at a camp, you can play man-to-man coverage against top flight receivers where you don't see them on your normal schedule. But I think that's a funny point there about, the rankings. You see us all the time. Why is this kid a 3-star and not ranked higher, and Ohio State's offered him? It's a flawed process, and our defense mechanism is we do the best with the information we have available today. In the next 3 months, opinions change. We're trying to predict how opinions were changing 20 minutes ago when I was saying, here's guys on my 2026 list that I think are going to make the jump. So that's the job we're in, where we try to make those predictions. I know Bill's got to go, but I would talk about this type of stuff forever. It's really in my wheelhouse.
Matt, it was a mom who didn't think your kids were rated correctly. That's pretty much what I said. And there were other kids on his line that were probably rated higher early on that shouldn't have been, and that's probably frustrating. So I'll handle this side. And this is a fact. There's no question. The Armstrong brothers played. Mark and I talked about it. If it wasn't the best offensive line in the country, I need to see it. It was the biggest and the baddest. And thank God they're coming to Ohio State.
And I saw that offensive line in person play against Akron Hoban, who was and is absolutely loaded. What a game that was.
Kyle Davis. Come on, buddy. We'll finish with this. Home state kids that verbal early stop getting as many bumps from national guys. Come on, we all know this. Unless you're Tavian St. Clair and on a media tour through the Elite 11 and stuff like that, we all know Ohio gets a little besmirched. We can hack it. All right, Bill's got to go. Mark and I wanted to stay forever. Those of you who are getting cut short today, you knew who to blame. Blame the dean. Just kidding. You guys have a great day. We'll be back on Thursday. Have a good one, Bucknutters.